Yeah. It's the first. It's the first. It's the first episode. It's the first. Might be your last.
But I'm looking for my first.
First episode podcast. Welcome to First Episode Podcast, a cherry popping debrief of your next binge-worthy television series. I'm your host, Motam Maurice.
I'm Atara G.
And I'm guest host, Raj Jawa.
Today we're cherry popping Monarch Legacy of Monsters.
After the world-shattering revelation that monsters are real, two siblings follow in their father's footsteps to uncover their family's connection to the secretive organization known as Monarch.
The genres here are science fiction, action, and adventure.
You can't talk about monsters without talking about Godzilla. The almost, not King Kong, but the kaiju of monsters. The king of monsters himself. On a kaiju version, I guess.
You literally took my line.
But you're gonna break down exactly what is Godzilla as a kaiju or as a metaphor.
He's a kaiju.
And what is a kaiju?
Well, Raj. Well,
Yes.
a kaiju is, if you've ever watched Pacific Rim.
Raj is a kaiju?
No. Let me backtrack. Let me clear my focus. Godzilla, I see Godzilla as a kaiju.
Okay.
And so those who are familiar with the universe of Pacific Rim will know that kaijus are creatures. I don't like the word monster because
Gotta be
the only
politically
monsters are really human beings where we act the worst. But anyways, kaiju come from the core. They come from the sea up through a portal or a tunnel that goes all the way to the core of the earth or deep into the earth. And so this has been opened up and the kaijus come up through there. So I see Godzilla as a kaiju if we're looking at, if we're talking about him as what he is, you know.
Mm-hmm. And as a metaphor.
As a metaphor, I think Raj had a really good perspective on that.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It seems like, too, in tying into what you're saying, I question if they are so powerful and maybe destructive, why don't they come up on their own? And it seems like maybe they're completely at peace or whatever underground. Perhaps they don't need to come up through the earth. And I think that's why in a lot of ways, this kaiju, this Godzilla, these maybe other monsters in this realm are kind of stand-ins for the destruction that humans do, whether it be environmental, such as, in this episode, digging through the earth's crusts, or maybe even some kind of controlling these monsters in another way, like some kind of, I don't know if any of the Godzilla's movies have done it, but like some kind of like control device that's maybe on the creature that makes them go crazy or what have you, or taking the eggs. There's so many different things, like the human interaction, which causes these quote unquote monsters to emerge out of, may just be creatures that are just beyond our comprehension and large, and we're scared of them, but may do us no harm if we hadn't actually involved ourselves with their matters.
Well, human beings are constantly disturbing environments. We're constantly disturbing the environments of others.
We're not comfortable in nature as nature is. Yeah,
exactly. And so when you're disturbing someone's environment, you're going to have an aggressive response. Like, why are these human beings touching my eggs? Like, why are they drilling holes into the core of the earth, into my realm? So yeah, metaphorically, they are a response to our own actions.
If a political group controlled the kaiju, Godzilla, would it be a Democrat or a Republican?
I mean, what's the difference between the two of those? They're both hungry, power-seeking entities. So,
and I think that's kind of the tie-in, is like, assume the Godzilla is a nuke or the deadliest military on the planet. Then whoever wields it, it doesn't matter because it's not a force of peace. It's a force of war, destruction. So I think there may be better intentions, but I think the point of this kind of story is there is no idealistic group, whether it be political, one person, whatever the case may be. People. The problem is not putting that power in the hands of people to begin with.
Who will wield it appropriately. Like Godzilla could be a friendly, he could be, when he's left alone, he could just be peaceful. Under the control of the wrong group, he's a menace. He comes up to the surface and stomps all over everything. So he's not necessarily a weapon, but he is just a tool that can behave as a weapon if in certain hands, or not behave as a weapon in certain other hands.
In some ways, I feel like that's kind of what they explore in Jurassic Park. You know, like just bringing back the dinosaurs, not necessarily super destructive, but humans being there when they get onto the mainland, that also gets pretty destructive. But like, it's not just them existing; it's their interaction, their natural world with our, inorganic world, our manufactured.
The common denominator in destruction is human beings, Homo sapiens.
Right.
So where we exists destruction.
Well, and that's kind of what I feel like the show seems to want to juxtapose between the cutting back and forth between the scenarios with the grandmother finding the eggs and perhaps the creature, we're not sure, but finding that, and also the early warning sign happening in Japan. It seems like that to me, like they're trying to indicate, like, it's not just Godzilla coming out of nowhere to wreak havoc because, it's birthing season or whatever the case may be. He's being brought up either by the behest or to strike back against
Something
humans
is
that have
summoning him.
right.
Something human beings are doing, our behavior is summoning kaijus.
And that's why you can use him as a stand-in for maybe like climate change, for war, for any kind of thing that humans do to ourselves.
Pretty much.
One of the scenes that stood out to me is when the Godzilla alert, and they had these evacuation buildings, and people are just gravitating inside of it, waiting for it to pass. It's no different from how we respond to hurricane alerts and hurricane warnings and things like that. So these are really on point parallels that you guys are presenting.
Well, and it's not that different too. Then I think, I mean, I'm not, it's another movie, so I'm not going to say it's historically accurate necessarily, but I just watched Blitz, and that's a movie about World War II and the same situation. They, at first they weren't letting people into the underground as shelters because they weren't meant for that. But when your city's getting bombed, there's no choice. There's no more options. So yeah, people started sleeping in the underground tunnels between, when the trains stop running. So yeah, it's very realistic.
You just brought a visual to my mind. A standing building has no chance against Godzilla. Wouldn't they be better off underground?
Seemingly, but that footprint's pretty big too. So Godzilla's foot's going to go pretty far down as well, especially with our infrastructure.
Stories down.
Yeah. But still, I mean, I imagine underground is safer than.
Which again makes it all moot. Any preparation against him is moot. Which again, if we're considering Godzilla as a metaphor for our own actions, we're just preparing ourselves to protect ourselves from our own actions, which is like a horrible toxic circle.
Right. And I don't know if it'll be on the scope of the show, but it's kind of the lack of addressing the root causes of issues, whether it be like, it seems to be for me, the Monarch going into this to look for these creatures at all, almost like Imogen or whatever the company in Jurassic Park was called. These people shouldn't be doing this. They're kind of doing it whether for profit or for control, and be better off if they just didn't do it. That'll be the interesting aspect about the legacy in this show. Because is everybody in agreement that they're all just, trying to unearth these creatures? Are some of them trying to stop, other grandma, don't do that, or whatever the situation may be? It's very interesting. I found it very intriguing that one, the classic paradigm of neglectful genius father abandons family for higher cause. It's like Terminator Zero all over again. But also the fact that he has two families in Godzilla hotspots. Like, why?
It's got, I mean, you can't work all the time.
That's true. It's right. I'm working Godzilla here, so I got a family here, working Godzilla over there.
It's interesting you bring that up because, you know, is he neglectful or is he just pursuing his passion?
Well, why do you give this guy so much credit? Terminator Zero got no credit.
That's true.
What did this guy do differently?
Well, he's flesh and blood. The other guy was a cartoon.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
My thing is, you know, it must be awesome to be so passionate about something. You know, to have something this passionate to pursue. And it's not that he doesn't care about his family. He doesn't love them. It's just that his passion comes first. And I'm sure when these women met this man, he was just as passionate about his cause as he was then. So I like, when Motown and I were talking about this earlier, I likened it to, you know, dating a gamer. You know, you have gaming as a hobby and you have gaming as an obsession. So, you know, gaming as a hobby is cool. You know, when it becomes an obsession and you neglect the other things in your family, that's a problem.
Sure.
But also, as people choosing a partner, we have a responsibility to choose the best partner for ourselves. So don't choose someone who is so obsessed with something else that it leads to neglect. And you've got to be able to spot that early on.
For sure. For sure. I will say, in terms of him specifically, though, I don't know yet, but I am wondering, though, if they're playing it like he's at these places of disaster because he's part of the reason why they're happening. Like 3 days after the Godzilla attack in San Francisco, and he's doing these weird cryptic messages to his daughter and then just showing up out of nowhere. It's like, oh yeah, did he do that, Godzilla? Like, and then, you know, in Tokyo, maybe he's, you know, I don't know if he's passed or whatever, but that's what's maybe something happening in Tokyo now, or what have you. There's the interaction could be following one of the family members.
Well, clearly, whatever the scientists were doing, I mean, they literally set bombs and blew up some stuff, and it cracked the ground open. So, whatever they're doing is setting off a chain of events for those creatures that exist underground. And that's what I mean. We constantly disturbing and bothering things.
Right.
And then, oh my God, we set off these bombs, this chain of, you know, explosions. Now these big roaches are coming out of these eggs and I'm dead.
Well, and we see that in political decisions all the time anyways. It's like going for what's expedient rather than thinking about the historical context or anything beyond that. It's kind of like reacting just to a moment. Let's I think the one that comes to my head, maybe it doesn't work in the right idea, but like the environment around school shootings, instead of like trying to get at the root of the problem or whatever, it's like, no, we'll put up metal detectors. We'll get security.
We'll sue the parents.
It's like they're not addressing the root. Similar to how we deal with crime in this country. Like there's no rehabilitation. There's no here's a place we're going to house you away from society for a while, and then you're back out and many times worse off because we've charged you or whatever for it. That's a separate issue. But the point is, there's no like ability or desire to try to address the problem. We'll paper over the problems, but we won't actually fix the crack.
That's the basis of this country.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You come in, you take someone's land, you enslave a bunch of people, you deny reparations for that group of people. You're not giving on any, instead of giving people land back or, you know, can completely disrupt their way of life, obliterate their country, their culture, destroy their language, separate their families, and then you just give them some money. No acknowledgement at all of the trees that you broke.
Well, and that's the money thing hasn't even happened. I think it was almost like everything you said, and then it's like, oh yeah, here's your civil rights. You're equal now, but we're not going to address anything that led up to
yeah,
this.
you're equal now, but we're not going to change any of the systemic issues that
Right.
continue to exist and cause the inequities.
Absolutely. And that, I mean, it's weird how that ties in, but it is kind of the human interaction, the human desire to kind of lack that knowledge. I mean, as much as Kamala Harris brought it up during the election, like the existing in context, you didn't just fall out of the coconut tree. I feel like even she doesn't look at the context of some of the decisions that are made by her administration, Joe Biden's administration, whatever. It's the same problem. Like there's not an ability or a desire to look at the root of the issue. It's just going to solve what's right in front of me right now. Same what they're looking at with the housing crisis. We're going to solve the immediate problem of just getting homeless off the street, not where to put them, not where to house them, not where to get them help if needed. It's just we want them out of sight, and
Right.
that's how we're going to address this.
Yeah, we don't want to look at it.
Right. Monsters, Legacy of Monsters.
Yeah,
it's
Legacy of
America.
Monsters. Yeah.
Now this show has a lot of.
We were talking about a show.
We were talking about
America, the show.
Sometimes I browse through IMDb and I look at the comments and things like that, and a lot of people enjoy it. But there's a few repeated comments that say it's a show about monsters without monsters. So that is a concern. Like you're gonna have a show with. So if people are liking it, maybe the storytelling is good. I'm sure we'll see monsters from time to time, but based on those type of comments, it's telling me it's not going to be a lot.
It seems like they're gonna the only time we're gonna see monsters is when they cut back to old movies.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, they took the budget. They did the budget for Godzilla. We're gonna just have the people.
I will say the daughter is a brat. Like she's totally hyper focused on what my dad did to my mom and I.
Right.
It's like
No, you mentioned that you partner up with somebody. You should expect to understand their passions. Are children supposed to understand the passions of their parents the same way a partner?
adult children should at some point. You become an adult and you develop your own passions, and your parents at some point move from they're your parents, but at some point you should be able to see them as adults.
That's another comment that stood out to me at IMDb. Adults with attitudes of teenagers in this show.
Like why isn't she asking her mom, why did you choose dad as a partner? Why did you choose someone who was going to be absent a lot?
Yeah. I mean, she's looking for someone to blame, it seems like, or at least in my reading, because the whole, did you know? Because she said, was someone there? So her immediate thought was like, oh, you must have known then.
But
you didn't tell me.
She's asking a lot of questions, but she's not answering any.
No.
His family in Japan has asked her several questions that she hasn't answered.
She's withholding information. She's using that as leverage.
For what, though?
And it's so rude. Like, they're suffering just as much as her and her mom are suffering. Like, the family in Japan is just hurting as much as she and her mom in San Francisco. Why blame and who is he cheating on first? How is that even relevant?
Right. Yeah, it's not like it's, this relationship started first, so it's more valid, or this relationship has gone longer, so it's more valid, or I mean, that's the other part too. The party that caused this is not even in the discussion, so we don't know. It's there, everybody's speculation.
Yeah. But you're only able to look at things outside of your own lens when you get to a certain level of maturity
and empathy.
And she's in a lot of pain right now.
Yeah.
I caught towards the end that she spoke Japanese for the first time.
She speaks Japanese. She doesn't speak it anymore because it was her and her father's secret language. But I don't see how the Japanese could be a secret language
Yeah.
when there's like a whole continent a whole country that speaks it. Like that was weird.
That
Well,
was, yeah.
I mean, I think I understand where, like me and my dad, like if we have like a contractor or somebody like who doesn't speak the language, we can talk to each other without them knowing. But yeah, it's it's a little rude,
Yeah.
first of all,
Especially when the
but I
people
think
they speak Japanese.
right, yeah, no, yeah, it's not. Yeah,
Yeah, that threw me
yeah,
off.
I agree.
I didn't know you spoke.
I don't. No, I don't.
you
I just
understand it?
no. He was just like, no, I'd like that you to have that.
Oh,
I never
okay.
did, but no,
Okay.
he's like that would be nice. Like, okay, sure. But yeah, no, I think I kind of understand. At least in in Japan, that's not unique. No, but in America, obviously, then you could talk to your dad without other people knowing what you're talking about. So that I kind of understand the motivation behind that a little bit, but it didn't make it any more make any more sense per se.
It's just it's interesting watching her play this kind of character, having just finished watching her be so honorable and level-headed in
On Shogun. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, if you are gonna have a secret family and they do speak Japanese, good to include your other daughter in speaking Japanese, so you don't get too confused. You know,
Exactly.
maybe one day they'll all meet up. You never know.
I want to see another episode. It's got to be good with or without monsters, but I will be disappointed if there's not a lot of monsters.
If there's not, I mean, I'm here for the monsters.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
they set up epic spider v crab. Like, what? Where's
on
any
Skull
of that?
Island,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
less.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I'm not gonna confirm that. I don't know what to expect. I just saw a handful of comments that complained there wasn't enough monsters.
Yeah.
So, so
Other
that
than their
was-
monstrous behavior, teenage behavior.
I mean, we got to see a little bit of Godzilla in the first episode. There's 3 storylines that's kind of interesting. I'm gonna give it a 3 and watch more and see what happens. 3 cherries.
I'm gonna give it a 2.5. I don't want to spend a whole season watching her complain about her absentee father.
I'm also going to give it a 2.5, and it's just because I feel outside the lore. It feels like seeing the movies might really add something to this. Like, I don't know all of them, but like it seems like you're a little bit out of sorts without it. Not that you need it, but I don't know. It feels like the world would be a little fuller if you had all those movies in your back pocket.
It's like a romance novelist trying to write a Stephen King book.
Huh.
You know, like it's someone who's like I don't know who wrote this, but it seems like a little disconnected. Because how could you possibly have a story titled Monarch of Monsters or
Monarch Legacy of
Monarch
Monsters.
Legacy of Monsters, and there's no monsters visible? We've only seen monsters in flashbacks.
I mean, the only way I could see you getting away with it is if the show was pure prequel. If the show was just finding the eggs and all that stuff, and like, oh, we don't have the technology or whatever, or we're growing. Oh, I know,
Boring.
but
Gosh.
yeah. Jurassic Park before they build the park.
Not interested. Yeah. Demo phase.
Monarch Legacy of Monsters released on Friday, November 17th, 2023. There's 1 season available and 10 episodes.
The average episode duration is 45 minutes. The network it's on is Apple TV Plus. IMDb rating currently is 7 out of 10, with a Rotten Tomatoes top critic score of 79%.
So, the news as far as upcoming seasons, yes, they have renewed Monarch Legacy of Monsters, and they announced plans for multiple spin-offs. So,
Of course. Yeah, why not?
why not?
Kate finds her dad.
I mean, I will say there's something, I guess, exciting about the idea of more movies kind of expanding into universes. Are they all going to be justified? Probably not. But like, it shouldn't be just Marvel. It shouldn't be like other movies should kind of like if they have a reason to. Like Star Wars, I guess, was kind of already there before Marvel in terms of like they had the Clone Wars animated series and all the movies, and I know the books were the original, like that's where the original lore comes from. So yeah, there's it's nice to see kind of that fleshing out, even if I'm not a Godzilla head or whatever. Like it's an interesting. It's nice. It's nice to have that kind of fleshing out. I think like Fallout branching into a TV show was great. So I like to see more of that.
Yeah. I got another question. In the case that we all decided to watch additional episodes from this show and the last 2 shows that we reviewed, what order would they be in? So we got The Madness to choose from, Silo, and Monarch Legacy of Monsters. If you had to choose to watch the next episode, in which order? I think I would go with The Madness, Monarch Legacy of Monsters, then Silo. I think so.
I'm pretty similar. I'd probably also go Madness, but I would probably go Silo and then Monarch.
Legacy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait for season 6.
No, answer the question.
Cobra Kai?
The Handmaid's Tale.
And by the time you're mid-season 6, they're going to announce a season 7.
Right. Muncie.
Muncie better get the memo.
Yeah. Muncie needs to get it together. Kate needs to start complaining about her dad. There's bigger things at stake. And, those folks in the silo need to start asking questions.
That's pretty much it. That's pretty much the summary.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the order.
I Cobra Kai'd The Madness, but actually...
No, you Cobra Kai'd Silo.
Oh, I Cobra Kai'd Silo. I would probably be... I don't know if I could tolerate watching another episode of Monarch Legacy in the Monsters.
Really?
Kate is just so whiny.
I want to know what's happening. I want to know at least one more episode of why I should care. But I'm not 100% sure I do care. I guess
I'm not sure I do care. If I'm not going to get to see like Godzilla and Mothra,
Rodan and
some of those guys come up out of the earth, I don't care.
We don't know for sure. I just shared a little feedback that I saw on IMDb. We don't know for sure.
Everything I said aside, it would be The Madness, Silo, and then this Monarch Legacy of the Monsters thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And
that said, I'll watch all of that after season 6 of The Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, brother. No, we're watching one of them today. The Madness. Later on, we're going to watch an episode of The Madness.
I want to finish Agatha.
We got time. But we all can agree that the 3 shows that we watch merit at least one more episode watch.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah. Those are our thoughts on Monarch Legacy of Monsters.
Thank you for trusting us.
We are honored to be your first.
For information about this podcast and more, please visit MotownMaurice.com.